chance could he is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds are against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit afa.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Riots have continued for 4 days in Los Angeles because Immigration and Customs Enforcement is attempting to remove violent criminals. Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McClain reacts to the riots.
This is an issue of a sanctuary city. For the past 4 years, there being no consequence to people coming across our border illegally. There's been absolutely no law and order.
However, members of the Democratic Party, such as California Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta, blame President Trump for deploying thousands of National Guard members and Marines to the city. President Trump, meantime, is calling the governor incompetent and is responding to Newsom's claim that he wants a civil war.
What do you make of the fact that he says, you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. A civil war would happen if you left it to people like him.
Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked what she would do if the president sent National Guard troops to her state.
Well, we wouldn't have this problem in Arkansas in the first place because we would never choose rioters and criminal illegals over American law enforcement. And if we got to a place where that was happening, I would call the president myself and ask him to bring people in to help us out. But we would never allow what California Governor Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have allowed to take place in California to ever happen in Arkansas. It's really clear. They can either choose normal versus crazy or order versus chaos. The fact that they are allowing rioters to run their streets and are mad at the president for stopping it is insane.
The FBI has learned the identity of the criminal who assaulted a federal officer during the riots in California over the weekend.
That guy has just been identified, and they are doing a search warrant on his house as we speak. So you can run, you can't hide. We are coming after you federally. If you assault a police officer, if you rob a store, if you loot, if you spit on a police officer, we're coming after you.
That's Attorney General Pam Bondi. ABC News political correspondent Terry Moran has been suspended after tweets savaging President Trump and his policy advisor Stephen Miller were uncovered. Steve Jordahl reports.
ABC's Terry Moran let fly a couple vicious posts late Saturday night about White House advisor Stephen Miller, saying, quote, Miller is a man who is richly endowed with a capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater. You can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. He said Donald Trump's hatred only serves his glorification. He quickly deleted the posts, but the internet is forever, and someone copied them down. Bill D'Agostino of Media Research Center says ABC decided the tweets went a step too far.
I think that everybody already knew what Terry Moran's thoughts were on Trump and Stephen Miller. But for him to post his thoughts about them so blatantly online, I think that ABC basically had to suspend him.
D'Agostino thinks ABC ought to take the next step.
I think they ought to fire him because nobody who writes something like that is capable of fairly covering those two people.
Trump and Moran actually had a run-in about a month ago when the ABC reporter got a chance to interview the president. It didn't go so well.
They looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
As usual, Trump had the last word.
Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
And finally, here's Janice Dean with a look at the nation's weather forecast.
A stalled-out frontal boundary that is draped across the south and along the Gulf Coast states will bring days of storms and heavy rain. Flash flooding will be the biggest concern, with some thunderstorms reaching severe limits. The Northeast also seeing rain in the forecast today, while record heat is the story for the Northwest, which should ease up midweek. For all your latest forecast details, be sure to check in with foxweather.com. I'm Janice Dean.
More news online at afn.net. afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network on this Tuesday, June the 10th, 2025. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Wesley. Good morning, Wesley Wildman.
Morning.
Good morning, Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
And joining us in Kansas City is our good friend Ray Pritchard. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Almost had to put you on the injured reserve list looking at your forehead here on the video.
I have got a big bandage on my forehead because, there are times in life, and Chris, you pointed this out to me earlier, normal people don't do what I did. I was trying to repair a plug, a smart plug, in my wall.
Uh-huh.
It's right behind my recliner. Normal people would pull the recliner out. But for some reason, I climbed up on the recliner, leaned up over the back of it, tried to reach down, lost my balance, started rocking back and forth, called for my wife. She couldn't get there in time, and my head went over.
Yeah.
And I hit that, the smart plug protrudes from the wall. I hit my forehead on it, and great was the fall and the blood thereof. And
I related to that so much. He did what I would have done in that instance.
Yeah. You didn't have stitches, did you? Or did you?
No, I just looked at it, and then, I did what people do today. I went to my two medical advisors, Dr. Grok and Dr. Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Actually did it. I took a picture and sent it up to Grok and Chat GPT and said, there's nothing really to, but I got a big, Marlene said, it looks like you got a flamingo carved into the middle of your forehead.
Yeah. After it was cleaned out, you're saying that's what the cut looked like?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she suggested, maybe we should put 666. I said, that's not going to help me at all if I put 666 on my Band-Aid.
No, nobody wants to sit by you on the airplane. That's
not
sure.
going to work at all. And I got to go preach next week at Cannon Beach in Oregon, and I'm doing the best I can to get healed up between now and then.
I was tracking with you there, and then you said balanced on the recliner.
Yes, sir.
Is that what you said?
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
And you're 6'4", 6'5", right?
That's right. And I had my head over, where you lean your head back, but I was up over it this way, and my head trying to reach down. And that's precarious because I found out you can lose your balance really fast. It started rocking back and forth. Marlene couldn't help me.
Is that when you knew I'm about to?
I knew I was a dead duck, and there was nothing to do but hit that plug. Other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah.
About 5 months ago, I was in my garage, and I have a couple shelves in a closet within the garage, and I had stored a couple 12-volt batteries on the top shelf, and I was reaching to pull my cooler off, and when I pulled my cooler off, one of the batteries came with it and hit me right where you got hit, and I ended up having to get 5 or 6 stitches. But then I learned from there, don't put heavy weighted stuff above eye level.
That's right. All right.
So that was a lesson.
I'll tell you what, fellas, this is a lesson to us all. You start getting up out of your recliner to do anything,
right?
You're risking injury.
So
that's right.
Just stay in the recliner.
Stay in the recliner.
That's the lesson for today.
Don't chance it. That's what I say.
Are you going to get up and do anything today? I could. But I could also hurt myself if I did
That's
it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
All right, Ray, if you would, give us a good word from the Scriptures this morning.
This is not unrelated. Psalm 119, verse 171 says, "It was good for me to be afflicted, that I might learn your statutes." And we all go through these times, and it could be much more serious than hitting your forehead. We go through cancer, we go through death of loved ones and suffering, and so many different things afflict us along the way. And the psalmist says, "It was good for me to be afflicted." Most of us don't look at life that way. We think it's unfair. It's not right. I shouldn't have to go through these hard times. And the psalmist says, no, if you understand what God is saying, you will say it is good because it taught me something I couldn't learn any other way. And I was thinking about my friend Jim Warren from Chicago, now with the Lord. And Jim was for years Primetime America on the Moody Network and had been closely associated with the church I pastored there in Oak Park. And one day I was spending time with Jim, and he said, "Ray, I got something for you need to think about." I said, "What is it?" He said, "I heard this today. When hard times come, be a student, not a victim." Mm-hmm. Oh, my. When hard times come, be a student, not a victim. A victim says, "Why did this happen to me?" A student says, "What can I learn from this?" Mm-hmm. A victim looks at everyone else and says, "Life isn't fair." A student says, "What happened to me could have happened to anyone." A victim would rather complain than find a solution. A student has no time to complain because he's busy making the best of the situation. A victim believes God is trying to punish him. A student understands that God allows hard times to help him grow. And here's the last one. A victim believes God has abandoned him, but a student says, "I see God's hand in everything, including the worst moments of life." Wow. Let me just say it to you this way. To say when hard times come, be a student, not a victim, is to say nothing more than what Paul said in Romans 8:28, "For we know." A lot of things in this life, friends, we don't know. A lot of things confuse us and sometimes disappoint us and perplex us, for we know what? All things, not some things, not even most things, but all things in God's plan are working together for the good of those who love him. So here's the good word for today. When hard times come, be a student, not a victim, and God will teach you through the hard times of life things you couldn't learn any other way.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you for that lesson from the Word of God there, and we pray that everybody will adhere to that and learn from that. Yes.
Okay, I hesitated to do this because I know you're going to look at me and go, "Not again," but I've got a baseball analogy.
Okay, well,
I often
you just threw us a curveball here on the show, but if you want to use the baseball analogy, go right ahead.
I didn't want to.
I hope you don't strike out.
I know we got to get to the news, and I don't want to.
And it's all good news. So don't worry about it.
Believe you me, I am.
We're packed. We're
nothing but good news.
We're chock full of good news to bring forth.
And
Go ahead.
I'm not going to make that devotion any better, but to help some people, or to not, is that I often tell the team that I coach that there's a lot that you can learn from losing, because the reason is because there's so much if you win. There's so much in a victory that you would otherwise not accept if you had lost, if you think about it that way. And so always winning, you begin to get complacent, and you don't realize that you're doing things that you otherwise, if you had lost, you would not have accepted. That's another way of agreeing with Pastor Ray Pritchard here, that having the attitude of what can we learn from this? What can we learn from our mistake? What can we learn from something that didn't go our way? Whether that be at our attitude, whether that be something that we should physically change or mentally change, but having that that student that wanting to learn from losing is what I call it. Having that type of attitude will take you a long ways in life. And it's a biblical principle, as we just saw there in the scripture. So that's what I wanted to add to the devotion this morning.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, but I still want to win.
Oh yeah, I know. Man. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. This is after the fact. This is after the fact.
Listen, I'm just kidding because everybody's going to – some people win more than others.
That's right. Yeah,
See Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. But you're right.
Yeah.
Failure and not having success and in sports losing, you can often learn a lot about.
In order to win.
In order to help you the next time around or improve your life. Yeah.
I related to that, and it was funny you mentioned what you just did, Tim, because – last year, our college football team was not doing so well, and it got to a point in the season where we were like, well, we didn't lose by that much. Like we were finding a moral victory in our many defeats.
All right, Chris, what's your first story?
All right, I want to point everybody's attention to AFN.net, where news director Fred Jackson posted this story today. Another 2,000 National Guard troops along with 700 Marines, are heading to Los Angeles on orders from President Donald Trump aimed at putting an end to those anti-ICE riots in the Los Angeles area. This would be on top of the initial 2,000 or so Guard troops that Trump ordered to start arriving over the weekend in Los Angeles. President Trump says he has no other choice but to do this. These anti-ICE riots have gotten out of hand. And even though people like Governor Gavin Newsom there in California have filed a lawsuit saying Trump is wrong to do this, Trump says, no, I'm in the right. And I've got a couple of clips here between Fox's Peter Doocy and Trump talking about this situation. Let's begin with this exchange. It's Doocy and Trump talking about that lawsuit from Newsom. Clip 1.
And right around the time that we were walking in here, the governor and the state attorney general said that they're going to sue you for sending the National Guard in. They're saying there's no invasion, there's no rebellion. The president is trying to manufacture chaos and crisis on the ground for his own political ends. Federalizing the California National Guard is an abuse of the president's authority under law.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You watched the same clips as I did. Cars burning all over the place, people rioting. And by the way, we stopped it. We were able to make it much better, but it still looked pretty bad. And in watching clips last night, people were saying this is really a big problem. And until we went in, if we didn't do the job, that place would be burning down just like the houses burned down. They were in big trouble last night, Peter. You know it. And the night before, and the night before that.
Now, before we get your guys' thoughts on that, I want to play another clip here. It's a much shorter clip, but it's where Doocy brings up the fact that Newsom is saying Trump wants to have civil war on the streets of the U.S. Clip 2.
What do you make of the fact that he says, you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. A civil war would happen if you left it to people like him.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go. I mean, I threw a lot at you there.
Well, I was gonna say, not commenting on the Civil War comment, but commenting on just the first Gavin Newsom, and that's that. I wonder what it would look like if Trump and his team didn't do anything. Because on one hand, you don't want to see Americans that are otherwise not participating in this suffer. However, if the leadership, local leadership and the state leadership isn't wanting any help and wanting it to stay like it is, another part of me is like, okay, we'll let them make the bed, sleep in the bed they made, if that makes sense. So that's my reaction to it. Dad, does that make sense though? I mean, because you don't want the people suffering around them that are not wanting the riots. But at the same time, they're not wanting help either. They meaning Gavin Newsom.
Let's remember what started this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have to go back to last week. I'm not sure what day it was. Anyway, ICE, the immigration. Is it called Immigration Customs Enforcement?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. That is, everybody knows this, but I'll just repeat it. Everybody knows that is the agency, the federal government agency, law enforcement agency, that's responsible for arresting people who are in our country illegally and having them deported. All right? So when they have to go arrest people for criminal activity or whatever, they're involved in things that that are criminal in nature. I mean, that's what they're primarily doing here. So, but when they're going into communities now where they're having to, and let's face it, when ICE goes in, it's just like when the FBI goes in, or when your local sheriff SWAT team goes to do something, or even on in a side of the road, sometimes we see police officers having to physically accost not in a bad way, but I mean manhandle a situation. We've all seen that before, and that rarely looks good. Okay, when you see people having to be. So when ICE goes in, they go in, and in the case here in Los Angeles, well, they were met with people got angry and upset because of what they were doing. Okay,
Their job.
And these are mostly people, I suspect, who don't believe in immigration laws.
Right.
Okay, they don't care, and so they began to attract more people who believe like them, and they became violent, and they began to clash with the ICE. The ICE wasn't prepared, I don't think, for this kind of thing, so they called in the sheriff's department, they called in the police department of Los Angeles, and then the riots, it became like BLM riots. Okay, right. It started to break out to anarchy, so that's when President Trump authorized the use of the National Guardsmen, 2,000, I think. Is that how many, Chris?
Yes.
2,000, to keep law and order, because these people were starting to block streets and highways with their physical bodies. They were starting to
burning cars.
They're throwing bricks at cops and ICE agents. They're doxing them. They're acting violently.
Yes.
Okay, and so President Trump said, no, we're going to go and support the ICE and the police, and we're going to use even National Guard to crack down on these folks.
That's a great synopsis of what's going on here. And Gavin Newsom's saying here, we don't want help. So that's where half of me is like, well, there's innocent people right here, whether you like it or not, we need to do something. But on the other hand, it's like, well, if this is what you want.
Well, Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass of Los Angeles, and I would say, I don't know if I'm accurate on this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this anyway. The majority of the citizens in the state of California don't want ICE to come arrest people. When you say, well, how do you say that and how do you know that? Because they vote for it.
Right.
California, Los Angeles, California, the city of Los Angeles, California, the state, they are sanctuary places.
Right.
Okay. And obviously not all Californians agree with that. There's some conservative parts of California, maybe Orange County, parts of Central Valley, Northern California, except for the Bay Area, but they're outnumbered.
Right.
And so, Ray, I'd like you to comment on this. So the people of California, a majority of them vote for Democrats and progressive politics, what they would call progressive politics. And so they don't care how many people come into their state and illegally. And they don't care. Now they would say, well, yes, we don't care about that, but we care about them conducting criminal activity. We would be opposed to that. But anyway, thus the clash between ICE and the people who are protesting the arrest by ICE. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, this whole thing that's happening in Los Angeles, California generally, it's inevitable. If Tim, first of all, that's a great way to set the whole thing up. In a way, this is what California wanted. They created a situation in which this was inevitable. And the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden or Barack Obama, or let's be honest, guys, with some of his Republican predecessors, the difference between Donald Trump and the others is he will do something. He will actually activate the National Guard and send them in to restore order in one of America's major cities. Look, we all agree, don't we? Protest is fine. You don't have to agree with the Trump administration's policies. In fact, you may vehemently disagree, and it's an American right to march. It's an American right to hold up signs and chant and all the rest. But all of that ends when you have decided to start throwing rocks at the police cars, when you are blocking lawful traffic, when you are setting cars on fire, when you're setting buildings on fire.
Yep.
I'm sorry, we've come to the end. So I think actually this is what Gavin Newsom wanted to have happen. And the only difference is we have a man in the White House who finally will do what he said he would do, unlike some predecessors who clucked about this kind of stuff, but would do nothing about it.
There are some people that have pointed out that in the early 1990s, near the end of his time in office, President George H.W. Bush mobilized the National Guard to respond to the L.A. riots in 1992. But Time Magazine is one of a few news outlets out there today saying things like, well, that's different. So,
hey, let me ask you this. I saw this last night. This was on CNN. You wonder, well, how is this looking to the American people?
Yes.
And talk about that, if you will.
Yes. I actually just shared this on our Today's Issues Facebook page, so it'll be there for people to read. But CNN's top data analyst revealed how Americans really feel about President Donald Trump's approach to immigration after the president sent federal troops to Los Angeles in the face of those violent riots. Harry Enton said this is Trump's net approval rating on immigration. He said this on air. He compared Trump having a negative 21 approval rating in June 2017 to a current +1 rating on the issue. He said, quote, "It's gone up like a rocket now versus 8 years ago during Trump's first term. There is no issue on which Trump is doing so much better than what he was in his first term on the issue of immigration." So what does that mean in English? CNN reveals how Americans really feel about Trump's response to things like the LA riots, and they like it, even though Democrats out there are on television, and I can play clips here, but Democrats are saying Trump's terrible, he's a dictator, he shouldn't be doing these kinds of things. Apparently, American people, which vote, like what Trump's doing.
Yeah. So you get this again. This is CNN, and they're saying the American people, a majority of them, approve of his actions.
Yes.
Still,
Mm-hmm.
because this is what he was elected on. He started at day one. We are a couple months into his term, and he's still doing what he said he's going to do. And the people, was that a nationwide polling?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The nationwide polling still approves him deporting illegal immigrants.
All right, let me just read for you how the other side feels, okay? Because we're in the feelings. Yeah. I just want to.
Right there with
you. Okay. I'm not saying this is right, but I'm just saying this is how these people think. I'm quoting, what's the SEIU International President April Verrett said on Monday that it's a labor union.
It is. Service Employees International Union.
It's a labor union. Mm-hmm. That quote, thousands of workers remain unjustly detained and separated from their families. At this very moment, immigrant communities are being terrorized by heavily militarized armed forces. The Trump regime calling in the National Guard is a dangerous escalation to target people who disagree with them. It is a threat to our democracy. The federal government should never be used as a weapon against people who disagree with them. America is a nation of immigrants. Immigrant workers are essential to our society, feeding our nation, caring for our elders, cleaning the workplaces and our buildings and building our homes. Immigrants are scientists, they're teachers. See, this is where this kind of thinking gets out of whack. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows America is a country of immigrants. and I don't know one person that's opposed to that.
If somebody doesn't know that, I want all my tax dollars that have gone towards education.
I know. We all know America is a melting pot and is a nation of immigrants. We also know that you're supposed to come here legally, not illegally.
Yes.
Why don't you put that in there? in your comments, because so two things can be true at one time. Nobody that I know says we're not a nation of immigrants, nor we don't.
Nobody's saying
we
shut down.
We welcome. I think we naturalize. Is that what you call it, Ray? When you make, I think we naturalize 1 million people a year or something.
I
like
think it's
that.
higher than that, and then it's per capita. Per capita, we're in the top in the country,
in the world.
In the world, yeah.
I know we welcome a lot of people.
Legally every year,
Millions of
even in
people.
spite of the
Right.
illegal ones.
Right. And so this was escalated because ICE went in to arrest some people
Sanctuary area.
in a sanctuary area, and they are some people are upset over that. Very upset. So we shall take a break right here. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. But this is getting to be a real heated standoff between Governor Newsom in California and President Trump. All right, we'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Once, while in Athens, Greece, a few of us decided to take a walk around part of that city. When we got ready to leave our hotel, an elderly lady who was in our tour group asked to go with us. We told her that we would be happy for her to come along. One of the reasons for the walk was to allow some of the other members of our group to cash some travelers' checks. So the first place we stopped was at a bank. While waiting at the bank, the lady began to tell me something about herself. She told me where she was from, who she was traveling with, and so on. Soon her conversation got around to her money. She told me how she had scrimped and saved, painstakingly looked for the best business deal, and done without down through the years. Then she informed me that about 6 months earlier she decided that since she was on up in years and that she couldn't take her small fortune with her, she was going to enjoy some of it. You know, I thought about what that lady said. I thought of all the people I knew who made it their greatest ambition in life to make another dollar. I thought about all those people whose bankroll was larger than their spirit, whose stocks were more important than their fellow man. Soon, some of us decided to go back to the hotel, while others wanted to do some more shopping. So we split, and each person went their own way. The little lady went back with me to the hotel. Now, there was a candy shop next to our hotel, and as I started into the hotel, the lady told me she wanted to go in and get some candy. So I went on into the hotel while she went next door to the candy shop. In the hotel, I continued to think about the lady and her conversion concerning her money. I thought about what the Galilean had to say about money and man's use of it. I thought of all the wars that had been fought, and all the murders that had been committed, and all the people who had become less than animals because of their greed for money. Well, after a few minutes, I decided that I would go to the candy store myself and get something sweet. The little lady was still there. She was sampling every piece of candy they had, and since no one in the shop spoke English, she was having a hard time making herself understood. I could see that the salespeople were becoming annoyed with her. I found myself a piece of candy that I wanted, paid the cashier for it, and began to eat it. The lady came over, looked at my candy, and asked me if it was good. I told her that it was, and so she told the waiter that she wanted a piece of candy just like that one, the one that I had. Well, the waiter took the candy, wrapped it, and gave it to her. "How much?" she asked. The waiter gave her the price in Greek money. She couldn't figure out the exchange rate, so she turned to me and asked, "How much is that in American money?" I answered her, "It's 12 cents. Well, she looked at me first, and then at the waiter. "That's too expensive," she said, and gave the candy back. You know, I guess that after 50 years of stinginess, parting with 12 cents is an awful hard thing to do.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew 19:14.
This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. We welcome Sandy Rios to the program. and Sandy is the host of Sandy Rios 24/7, the podcast that we offer here on AFR.net, a very popular podcast, AFR.net. Sandy has 3 shows a week on Sandy Rios. It's called Sandy Rios 24/7, and she joins us now. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Doing well. How about you? How's the podcast? How you liking that now? You've been doing that 2 years now?
Oh, or 3. I'm
3?
not sure. I don't know. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years, but I do know that I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's different than the morning. You know, you for 10 years you got up and did the live morning show for us here on American Family Radio, and now the podcast. So the podcast world's a little different. You have a little bit more flexibility, right?
Yes, we do. And, it's long form. I do long form.
Right.
When I used to do the morning, I get in. I'd have a stack of news. You can't imagine. I read all of that, and then I distill. But it was, that's fun and exciting. I'm kind of wired that way.
Yeah.
But I think my wiring is kind of getting a little frazzled. So it's better for me to do long form
I understand.
right now.
Hey, what about we've been talking about the situation in Los Angeles, California, obviously, and the standoff now between federal forces or the National Guard, it's risen to this level, and the rioters out there, the protesters. I don't know what's going to happen today. Hopefully it'll de-escalate, but what are your thoughts on what's happening out there and how it's being handled?
Well, I love how it's being handled. I mean,
Okay.
I'd like to see, I think the police and the National Guard and all of them have to be more aggressive. I realize it's really, really a horrible position to be in because you are in it's like a hostile country. You've got these millions of illegal and legal immigrants that have been allowed into California. You have a group called La Raza. That's been around for years, and it means the race. And they are communists. And this particular group wants to take back all of the land that the United States, they think, took from Mexico. That includes Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, all of California, and more. And they hate capitalism, and so that's part of it. I heard one of those guys make quite a speech. He had, he speaks perfect American English because he's been here a long time, but he hates this country. And then you've got now the Islamists, the pro-Palestinians joining in. You've got Antifa, dressed in black, really trained to kill and be stealthy and destroy. And then you've got just gang members that are out on the streets in L.A. And then you've got a mayor, Karen Bass, who herself has a deep history in communism. I don't know if you've come across that story, but Karen Bass was very strongly connected to Cuba's Castro. I used to fly down there all the time. She was an official part of a group that actually was the birth group to the Weather Underground, which later became the radical communist group in the United States during the 80s, 70s and 80s, that bombed the Capitol, that killed policemen. Bernadine Dorn was the leader of that, and Bill Ayers. So Karen Bass is part of that. She is a radical leftist communist going back to her youth. So that's your mayor. And then you've got Gavin Newsom, who's not doing anything. I guess he sent out some Los Angeles police finally to get into the fray. But he's now suing President Trump for bringing in defense of the Los Angeles and the people of Los Angeles. So it's really such a dangerous, sad situation, Tim, but I would like to see our guys, and I mean the guys on the side of law and order, even crack down more. They just need to.
Yeah.
There has to be punishment, or it's never going to stop.
Yeah, well, it's a very fluid situation and volatile. We'll see what happens today. Hopefully the overwhelming, I say overwhelming, that's what it appears to me, show of force by the National Guardsmen and the L.A. Police, L.A. County sheriffs, their riot police officers will stop this.
And the Marines.
Yeah. Are the Marines coming in?
Yes. Yeah, they're sending him down from Camp Pendleton.
We're going to talk to Abraham Hamilton III tomorrow, lawyer, constitutional lawyer, because I always understood that I guess we'll talk about it right now since you mentioned it, Sandy, but I didn't think that the armed forces of the United States could do police work inside our borders.
Well, that's the posse comitatus, they call that.
Yeah.
That restriction. And you're right about that, except that this is a matter of national security. This is really technically an invasion from all fronts. It is a legitimate insurrection of government and destruction, attacks on federal officers. This is a very serious, and I know that I don't know the statute off the top of my head, but this is perfectly legal for President Trump to order these things because of the circumstances on the ground.
So excuse me, that Spanish expression you used, what did you say?
Posse comitatus. I think it might be Latin. I think it's Latin.
Oh, it's Latin, not Spanish. I thought posse was Spanish.
Well, Spanish is Latin. Yeah, Spanish is Latin. So you're close.
See,
y'all are just trying to embarrass me right now. See, Chris, by pulling out your Latin knowledge and your
no
Spanish
huevo, no huevo.
No huevo. No, I'm just kidding. Well, anyway, that I've always heard that, that you can't use, because of that, you can't use the United States military to do police work against against people who are here. But anyway.
Hey, Sandy, this is Wesley here. My question, my question would be for you is, what would keep Trump from doing nothing? Because he's getting blamed for invading states' rights when we know that's not the case. We know that's not true. But if he stays out of it and they get to live in the mess they've created, what's the downfall there?
Oh, because Wesley, this is a deep, dark force that is coordinated all over the country. It's not just California.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they're sending out. They have a map of. They're going to do this all over the country.
Okay.
This summer, this is a plan. They have a name for it, and it's a. There are several names. I mean, it's an operation of what's called the red-green axis. Or red meaning communist, left, and that would be Antifa, La Raza, and a lot of others. And then the green axis is Islamists, Muslim Brotherhood. But there are other things in between. There's just gangs and criminals and all of that. It's also law and order. We cannot let the people of the state of California are American citizens.
Yeah.
They're not all part of that. They have to be protected. That's what government is for. Mm-hmm. And if the government in California won't protect them, then the federal government has to come in and do that. And there is precedent for this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like in Alabama, when George Wallace defied the federal ruling that you had to segregate schools, they brought in national troops. So, and there's another example, too, that I can't recall right offhand. But,
well, that was the National Guard, I think. And the National, I don't know what you would differentiate between the National Guard and the United States Marine Corps in terms of they're both federal forces. Anyway.
I don't know.
But here, to your point, though, Sandy, and then Ray, I'd like you to comment on this. When you have I would agree under normal circumstances with Wesley with just saying, if California wants the whole world of illegals to come live in their state and they won't let crime run wild and they want to vote for that, you knock yourself out, okay? Yeah. However,
it's the idea of sleeping in the bed you've made. That's what I was
absolutely, or in their case, burning down the bed you made. But but here's the thing. I understand that sentiment, but on the other hand, Sandy is saying, if you allow a home base for criminal activity to go unchecked, then
I agree.
They may be operating in Chicago and in New York and in Atlanta and Dallas and small towns with things that are going on based in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and hearing Sandy's point too, I was thinking, well, if you don't do something, if you don't set the stage or the tone now with how you're going to handle this one, then it may give.
I tell you what, the emotional reaction of people on the left is they're going to say, well, this is Trump sending in his jackboot forces to arrest a 21-year-old illegal immigrant who hasn't committed any crime. So they're using our government to crack down on that kind of thing, which is not true. Okay.
Right.
Because as far as I know, there's no effort to use ICE to arrest people who are not already involved in some kind of a criminal or gang activity.
Yeah. Tim, this particular arrest that they're rioting over was a criminal matter but it involved. I'm sorry, I have to be vague because I can't remember the details, but it involved people here illegally, but it involved criminal activity,
Right.
like a group. I don't know. I want to say counterfeit or something like that. It was
Right.
a ring that they were breaking up. So it's a crime. It was a serious crime that they were coming after these people.
They weren't
for.
going after Jose, who was out in the field picking,
No.
vegetables or something like that.
No.
All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on AFR. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray. Ray, do you have any thoughts or questions for Sandy?
I do, Sandy. I'm thinking about what you said. They want to go. They're going to go. This red-green axis. They're going to come to Chicago. They're going to come to Cleveland, presumably Philadelphia, maybe New York, Atlanta, who knows? It seems to me that what they want is not just rioting. They actually want, I suppose, they want the National Guard to come in because they want this to be, they want to be seen as the victims in all of this, to gin up public support. But it seems to me that Americans want, the old phrase, of course, is law and order, but what they want is peace. They want to be able to go to a place like Los Angeles and feel that it's safe. So let me ask you, what should we expect? I mean, this is early June. As we move through July and August, hot summer days, should we expect riots like this in the other major cities?
Absolutely. There's a map of them. If I thought about it, I would have pulled it up. They've planned riots across the country, and Ray, they've been in Chicago for years. I'll give you an example. Bruce was just assigned at the FBI. He was the legal counsel, and it was his first day on the job. It's before he and I even met. And the Holy Land Foundation, that might ring a bell with you, but it was based in Chicago, and that was an organization. It was a front for the Muslim Brotherhood, for the worst types here who have embedded themselves in D.C. and all over the country. CARE is their Council for American Islamic Relations. They were very powerful in Chicago through the Holy Land Foundation. And Bruce's first day on the job there, he got a call, and he didn't even know where. He hardly knew where his office was.
Working for the FBI.
Yeah, with the FBI.
Yeah.
And a call came in that the FBI had been surveilling this Holy Land Foundation, and they realized that they were planning this overturn of the United States. And so somebody leaked to the Holy Land Foundation that the FBI was surveilling them. And the next thing you know, Bruce was called from the Holy Land Foundation by some clandestine person saying they're shredding all the documents, and he could hear the machines in the back. And he was the one that had to order a raid of the Holy Land Foundation. That became the foundation for a famous case that came out of Virginia later when they found these documents about the Muslim Brotherhood. And one of the things they said in these documents that we are going to destroy their miserable house from within. We're going to destroy their miserable house from within. And that's a battle that I was in, and it's still a battle, but I was very involved in it when I was in D.C. They're totally infiltrated, and they're in Chicago. They're everywhere, the Muslim Brotherhood. These are the Islamists, the ones that want to kill or convert.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues, and you can listen to Sandy 3 times a week with her podcast. Yes, Wesley?
I was just pointing to...
Where is it?
Yes, her podcast is on afr.net. I'm guessing you're also going to... That's where I tune into it, but I'm guessing you're going to be on other platforms with your podcast as well, Sandy. Is that right?
Yeah, they were on all the podcast platforms, all the major ones. There may be some exceptions, but Apple and Spotify and Amazon and whatever else.
Her most recent title for her most recent podcast is Mark Griffin Seriously Wounded by Police on January the 6th, or J6, in an Untold Nightmare. Mm-hmm. So that's her most recent one. There's other ones as well.
When was that?
That was June the 6th.
Yeah.
A couple days ago.
Well, Sandy, thanks for being on with us, and we encourage people to go and subscribe and get your podcast 3 times a week. Sandy Rios 24/7. Rios is Sandy's last name, and look forward to having you in Tupelo soon. Right?
Oh yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, I'll be there in a couple of days, and I'll see you guys. It'll be great to see you. So thanks for inviting me. All right. Can I just one last word?
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize to everyone that what's happening in Los Angeles right now is what's happening in the underbelly of this country all over. They have plans for destruction. That's why it matters. We have to take a stand now. We have to support our president when he's making these hard choices. Yeah. We need to speak out. So.
Absolutely. Amen. All right. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it.
Okay. My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. You're listening to today's issues on AFR. Hopefully it doesn't get as bad as it might get.
Right.
There is that map out there. I have seen it too, with dots all over America, where on June the 14th, which is Saturday, right? There are demonstrations / riots, who knows, that are planned in response to, well, President Trump and his policies and law enforcement, basically.
And I'm guessing, haven't seen the map, but I'm going to guess they're in blue cities.
Well, they're all over the country. Who knows whether that's accurate or going to take place? But no, it's not just there. It's all over the country.
Gotcha.
All right, Chris, what's your next story?
Well, this one's a big one that we're probably going to be talking about for at least the next few days, certainly weeks. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Has removed every member of a so-called scientific committee that advises the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on how to use vaccines, and pledged to replace them with his own picks. In a story we have on our website, Mr. Kennedy says, without removing the current members, the current Trump administration would not have been able to appoint a majority of new members until 2028. A clean sweep is needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science.
Wow. So he fired how many of them?
All of them.
All of them.
So how many are there? Like 15 or 16?
I'm looking here because I want to say we have it we don't have the ballpark figure in our story, which is an AP story that we have posted on our web.
Ray, did you hear about this? RFK firing them off?
Yeah, I read the article a little bit earlier. A good, bold move.
Yeah.
Some of these people came on. They are part of the Centers for Disease Control back in the Fauci days, and Mr. Trump, the president, needs to be able to put his own people on that board. I guess, Tim, the only way to get his own people is to dismiss everybody at once.
Yeah, so they were terminated. Their jobs were lost. RFK Jr. did that. Yeah, what is his title?
He is the Health and Human Services Secretary. And by the way, I have found an answer to your question. He has fired all 17 members of this committee.
And does it say what the committee's job was?
Well, they looked at vaccine and they made recommendations on things like vaccines and policy regarding vaccines. So we have cleaned house, basically.
Which, while it's not a law, is treated amongst like schools and jobs, is treated as if you don't do this.
They're the authority.
Right. Yeah. He said that the committee members had too many conflicts of interest. Currently, committee members are required to declare any potential such conflicts as well as business interests that arise during their tenure. They also must disclose any possible conflicts at the start of each public meeting. But again, Kennedy says these members have too many conflicts of interest. We don't know exact details there. But certainly if they have something where they benefit financially or they're invited to circles based on their yes or no on certain things, that is a conflict of interest.
Yeah. So this is going to be framed by the liberal news media as anti-science.
Oh yeah,
and they're going to say radical. The radical RFK Jr., who's radically against vaccines, which by the way is not true. I've heard him speak.
Oh, he said it many times during confirmation hearings.
But the political left in this country want to make him seem like he's against all vaccines when he's not, and he's going to appoint. Listen, this is what happens. Elections have consequences, and RFK Jr. is now installing are going to appoint a whole new vaccine recommendation board.
Right, and when I listen to him, I haven't heard him in a while speak, but when I listen to him primarily leading up to the election, anybody with any objectivity or being objective would be able to say he's wanting to express science. He wants to check things. He wants a second opinion from from another doctor. Like, just because you're questioning, is this the right thing, or or revisiting something that may have worked in the past but not working now? Literally, he's doing everything that you would want in a doctor, and as it relates to his opinions and things like that. So he's actually the opposite of what they're accusing him of, as we all know.
Right. All right, next story.
Well, I want to bring people's attention to one other thing here. Members of the House are having a hearing today to discuss the impact of screen time on kids' mental health. There is a concern that young people, especially, spend way too much time in front of a tablet or in front of television, computer screen, what have you. And so members of the House are discussing the impact of screen time on kids' mental health. Somebody that was on television earlier today to talk about this is Mothers Against Media Addiction Executive Director Julie Scelfo, who had this to say about the impact. Clip 9.
We're in the middle of a national emergency in youth mental health. We've seen an increase in rates of suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, and it's all connected to our kids' overuse of phones. These phones are designed to keep us addicted. Social media is designed to keep us checking, and our kids' compulsion to check their phones is inhibiting their development, and it's displacing critical real-life experiences they need to grow up healthy.
What is it about?
All right, you guys, how old are your kids, Chris?
Mine are going into 10th and 7th grade, so 15 and about to be 12.
9, 7, and 3.
All right, so Ray's got you got grandchildren.
You got grandkids, right?
Yeah, I got grandchildren, obviously, and a bunch of them. You got a bunch of them too, don't you, Ray?
Got a bunch.
Yeah,
got a bunch.
But as a parent, how do you see this, Wesley? What she's talking about there?
Well, I agree with
screen
her.
time for kids.
I agree with her. So I use the word no technology sometimes. So throughout the day or throughout the week, it's very common. In fact, my kids can kind of sense it coming, and I'll say no technology, or we've had enough technology, and that would mean both TV, iPad, or phone, or even Nintendos or Game Boys or anything like that. So we limit ours. I don't have a certain number I look for right now. Some parents do. They'll say 30 minutes or an hour, whatever. But I kind of sense it. I can kind of get a feeling from day to day, and based on what we've done, I know that we prefer, and if we can help it, we're outside more times than not. Obviously, you got rainy days, and you got some days in Mississippi it's 110. Muggy,
humidity index, yeah.
So we're not anti screen time, but we do consciously monitor the amount of time they do, because of what she just said.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? Your kids are teenagers?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I got a teen and a tween.
Okay.
And we do spend a lot of time on electronics. The problem that I run into is me saying, hey, too much screen time, but I have, a BA in communication, and I work in news, so I'm usually watching something, looking at something, talking to somebody
as
on
you're
something.
telling them not to do it, you're on it, right?
So
I
think there is something there that parents, myself included, because I have felt it this greatly. I think parents really need to kind of take a self-examination of what you are doing in front of your kids as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Get outside and play, right?
Yeah.
More of that.
So what we do is we put them outside, and we tell them where the popsicles are, and we lock the door. That's what we do. We have a freezer outside. Hey, in all seriousness, though, I have found creative and fun ways to engage my kids in the summer break. And we have a water slide, we have a trampoline, we have a fort, we have our cousins right down the road, and so they're back and forth on their bikes.
Fishing,
yeah, we do fishing, a little bit of everything, but definitely, the technology is a good thing. There is a lot of good things you can learn from there. There's some educational games that we also include. But she's right. You got to be careful. Be thoughtful about it.
For a number of reasons.
Right.
All right. We'll be back after this short time out with Steve Paisley Jordahl. Thanks for listening to AFR. We'll be back momentarily.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
If God could speak, what would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this. We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us.
When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. It's the second day of talks between the United States and China to discuss trade and dialing back a trade war. Edward Lawrence from London with more.
The feeling inside the U.S. delegation is that they're really tackling real issues at the table here. A Chinese delegation spokesperson came out and said that having engagement is better than not. And this morning coming in, the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, anticipated this would be a long day. And he said the talks are going well, but there are a number of difficult issues the two sides want to tackle. The Chinese want the U.S. to relax export controls on the highest of technology. China also wants to avoid 145% snapback reciprocal tariffs on August 12th. And for the U.S., President Trump ultimately wants China to open its markets to U.S. products.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth testifying during a House Oversight Subcommittee hearing today. The Defense Secretary answering a question about the response to the anti-law enforcement riots taking place in Los Angeles, stating ICE has the authority to do the task delegated to them by President Trump. He also referenced the response to the Minneapolis riots in 2020, in which a police department was burned by rioters.
The police precinct, ma'am, was abandoned and burned to the ground. And because of that, the National Guard was eventually far too late mobilized. And President Trump recognizes a situation like that, improperly handled by a governor, like it was by Governor Walz, if it gets out of control, is a bad situation.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee is criticizing the United Nations for its complaints about food efforts such as the Gaza Humanitarian Fund. Talking about this on Washington Watch, Huckabee said Israel and the U.S. are doing their jobs, not the UN.
The UN has been whining for weeks that there need to be a humanitarian effort. As soon as there was one, they started complaining that they didn't like the way it was being conducted. This is like saying, I'm so very hungry. I am so very, very hungry. And then when the food shows up saying, I don't like the color of plate that the food is being served on. The UN has not lifted a finger.
The Senate preparing to do a rewrite of President Trump's big, beautiful budget bill this week ahead of House Speaker Mike Johnson's deadline of getting it signed by July 4th. Arkansas Congressman French Hill says he's fine with the chamber tinkering with the bill a little bit, but insists there should be no major changes.
I think on the tax side and on the spending cut side, we stop a big tax increase on American families, and we accomplish several of President Trump's top goals that he campaigned on that the American people overwhelmingly supported: rebuilding our defense, defending our border.
A Michigan man arrested and charged with calling in a phony airport bomb threat.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says airline personnel refused to allow 23-year-old Charles Robinson to board a Spirit Airlines flight last week after he arrived late to Detroit's Metropolitan Airport. They say after getting into an argument with customer service agents, he allegedly used a cell phone to call in a bomb threat against the flight, forcing dozens of airline passengers to evacuate. Investigators say they connected the Michigan man to the threat through phone records. He was arrested when he returned to the airport for another flight. He's been charged with maliciously giving false information about an explosive and was released on bond. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
And finally, a conservative activist wants to make marriage great again.
Cole Mugio of Frontline says, we have a culture in the month of June that every year tries to beat you over the head with pride. He adds that our goal as the body of Christ needs to not only reject that, but show what godly, biblical marriage looks like in our lives.
I think the church falls down on that front. But from a policy perspective, also realign our laws with what God's word is and what marriage is supposed to be.
Mugio says the church came together in the 1970s after Roe v. Wade was decided and set its sights on overturning the abortion ruling.
The church needs to do the same with Obergefell.
Today, Frontline is committed to help make marriage great again through 4 key strategies: genuine discipleship, leading public policy, impactful training,
and engaging in elections.
It will take time to achieve ultimate victory. It's taken time on life. We're still not there yet. It will take time on marriage. That's a long-term battle, but you have to employ all of these strategies in order to have a final victory.
I'm Chris Woodward.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of this show on AFR. Tim, Wesley, Ray, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Morning, everybody.
So, how's life?
Life is good. Life is good right here in Mississippi. We're having a good time. A lot of news to cover, so not a dull moment.
How did you? By the way, I'm just curious. Yeah. You've lived all over. You've lived in Madagascar, right?
Yep.
Then you lived. You grew up in Northern California.
Yep.
Then you lived in the Los Angeles area, right?
I went to school in L.A. Yep.
Then you lived in Colorado.
15 years.
Where else?
I feel like at this point you're making this up.
Well,
I was born in Portland.
I just wanted to say to Steve that ICE is waiting for you. That's right. And they're right outside our building here.
I don't doubt it.
Because you just, anyway, you immigrated to here from Madagascar, and I don't think you did it right.
I might not have.
They want to talk to you. No,
take it up with my
I say that to ask you this question. Where else, by the way, was there?
I went to school. I was born in Portland, Oregon, and went to seminary up there in Portland, Oregon.
So the humidity in the South is well known in the summertime. And so how have you? I know you work inside.
Yeah.
But how did that? Did you notice that or anything?
I'd been in humidity. It was
in Madagascar.
No, Madagascar was Tananarive, the capital city, is in the tropics. It's above the Tropic of Capricorn. Yeah. So it has a rainy season. It's like every tropical country. The humidity, my story with the humidity is my kids, we went and took them to Disney World one time, and we were in Colorado.
Orlando or Anaheim?
Orlando, Disney World, yeah. And Colorado has almost no humidity. It's dry up there, which makes the cold not as
like
cold.
The Mountain West. Most of the Mountain West is like that, right?
Yeah. And so when we got off the plane, we're in the airport and everything, we walked to the doors that lead out of the airport to the place outside where you pick up the passengers. Yeah. The doors open. My kids take half a step out there and they stop. What in the world is this? They'd never been in that kind of humidity before. But it's a little different. It's okay.
Yeah.
I like being inside.
All right. What's your first story?
All right. I know you guys talked an awful lot about the L.A. riots and everything, and I just want to bring this up. This is we can chalk this up to the way the media is covering the riots, okay? I'll just throw this out here, and then we can move on to something else. But local news anchor Jory Rand, Jory, Jory Rand, R-A-N-D, he works with ABC News 7 in L.A., and he's one of these people that thinks that bringing the police in, the National Guard in, the troops in, that's not a good thing. Because, well, I'll let you listen, cut 16.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Yeah, the altercation comes when you bring the police in.
Well, that's kind of one of those things where you go to a person, are you hearing yourself?
That's right.
That's right. Let's go out and have some fun watching cars burn, right?
Hey, as a part of the riots on Saturday, speaking of this, some of the protesters called or ordered, however you say it, driverless vehicles,
Waymo,
which were going to serve as taxi service under legitimate purposes.
Correct.
And then they called them to the area where they were, and they set them aflame.
Yep.
Right, Steve? Did you hear about this?
Some of these cars were well over $100,000 cars. These are driverless cars. In fact, I saw one figure that said they're up to $500,000. I have a hard time believing the car would be $500,000, but very expensive. They're completely driverless, so they have all the technology. They're nice cars because they're, and I think they're electric. But yeah, the protesters, the rioters, called a taxi basically, and this taxi comes, and then they set it on fire.
I just don't. The rioting aside, I don't think, Ray, I could get in a car that pulls up without a driver.
Without a driver, right?
Have you ever done that, Steve?
No, I've never been in one.
Where are they? Are they in other places besides Los Angeles? What's the name of the company?
Waymo. It's way more fun to drive in one of those.
So they
apparently it's way more fun.
Have you ever seen this before, Ray?
Never seen it. I don't think I've ever heard of it. But this is kind of crazy. So the rioters were calling for these Waymo cabs, which don't have any drivers.
Yes.
When they show up, then they're setting them
on fire.
Oh God.
And the Waymo company stopped sending them because they realized, after 2 or 3 cars explode,
we're running. We're losing our fleet here, right?
We got a lot of cars that aren't coming back.
Right.
They're going to the same area. Wonder what's happening, Bill.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Waymo cars right now. The technology that they have on here, I can see that these cars being a couple $100,000 for sure.
Yeah, well.
Current cities: Phoenix, San Francisco, L.A., and Austin.
They're basically
coming soon. Atlanta and Miami.
Yeah,
and Tupelo. No.
They're computer-controlled cars.
Yep. AI is amazing.
Driverless. Well, would you get in one, Steve?
I'd have a hard time. I don't know.
From the awkwardness or the
But if you order one, it is already.
Yeah. I wonder if they're actually available for purchase by a.
Can you wave one down?
Oh, I don't know. I think you order one with an app. They don't drive around.
Wave one down.
Huh?
They don't
That's
drive
a
around.
good question.
Yeah, they're not driving around
designed.
looking for.
If a person's waving one down, they're not going to be the same person using it.
If you see do they have a little sign on top?
No, but they have 4 different layers of cameras and video footage.
Okay. You know how you wave down a cab?
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you could.
They're
do
not
that.
driving around the street empty. They're in a garage somewhere. You ordered.
All right, guys, let's get back to the clip here. The clip said that the police officers and the military showing up to enforce law would cause chaos.
That's the problem.
So
Who
they're
said
showing
that?
up.
Oh yeah. That's what the liberals say.
Yeah.
That bringing in law enforcement only
escalates
inflames or escalates the situation. Well, listen, I would be fine with that argument if this were done in a vacuum, or if the law enforcement support, like the National Guard or riot police, were brought in, and they weren't already provoked to be there for a reason. The reason they're there is to protect the ICE agents,
right,
from being pummeled.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be near. They wouldn't be called out. So the lefties don't mention that.
No, right.
They don't mention that.
Well,
or they would say, "Hey, ICE."
Escalated.
Or they would say, "ICE are thugs, and they don't need to be there in the first place, and we don't need to enforce our immigration laws because we don't believe in immigration laws because they're immoral, just like they don't believe in borders."
Right.
So that's the thinking on the far left, anyway.
But the irony here, there's already an escalation, which is why we're coming.
Right. Next story, Steve.
All right. Hey, good news. The U.S. Army has met its annual recruiting target of 61,000 new recruits in the first week of June. That's 4 months ahead of schedule. It had failed to meet its recruiting goals in 22 and 23, and it had struggled for years to meet recruiting goals. And so what's the change? Well, the U.S. Army is focused on lethality, taking care of soldiers, transforming a dangerous future for young people across the country that want to be part of the Army. And Donald Trump and Secretary Pete Hegseth have attributed the change in attitude brought by the Trump administration's end of policies promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have to say, if Democrats are looking at how to appeal to young men, they might want to ask Pete Hegseth. Although they won't.
This is a small sample of that. A couple weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C., And while I was there on work, I was able to go to one of the Washington Nationals baseball game. And from the time I walked up to the time I left, right and left, there was a lot of support for the Army. There was a lot of sign-up booths, and they had a video that they played in support. They
were trying to recruit.
They were recruiting. They had these large military vehicles, and this is something that I haven't seen in a long time as it relates to trying to recruit. And they were recruiting like you were just describing. And it was a really patriotic and cool feeling to be at a Washington National game and see that their stadium and their support was for recruiting for the Army. And they made it out to be like you did, like protecting the country. There was no LGBT, no woke stuff in their advertisement, but it was like manhood.
This is very simple.
Very
Ray, this is very simple. Under Biden, they tried to turn the United States military into this
woke experiment.
DEI woke
woke
program, and the men, in particular, the young boys, I say young boys, not 12, I'm talking about age eligible to enter the armed forces, the numbers dove. They took a drastic decline. None of the armed services branches were meeting their required numbers. Maybe the Marines, I'm not sure. But then when President Trump was elected, new commander-in-chief, get rid of all the woke policies, then the numbers of recruits skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we should be surprised,
right?
Because the Army is a fighting force. It's there to defend freedom in America and around the world. And if you fill your Army with, quote, drag queens, so to speak, don't be surprised when you can't produce a George S. Patton. If you want a General Patton, you got to get these other guys out of the Army. And I think what's happening now under Mr. Trump and Pete Hegseth, we're getting the Army back to what it was always meant to be.
Yeah,
amen.
For one, Wesley, may I just say I'm glad you actually came back instead of joining the Army.
Yeah.
Because I know it must have been tempting.
Yeah, it was. It was inspiring, man. I walked up and I was like, what is this tank doing here right in the middle of
you mean
entrance?
what they were doing? Yeah, they were advertising for the Army.
Yeah, and they had a booth set up. Once you got closer, you saw what was going on, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
All right. This is something that's in the big, beautiful bill, and a lot of people aren't talking about it, but the Trump administration is announcing what they're calling Trump savings accounts, and Donald Trump himself is actually going to explain it to us. Cut 13.
Here's how the accounts work. For every U.S. citizen born after December 31st, 2024, before January 1st, 2029, the federal government will make a one-time contribution of $1,000 into a tax-deferred account that will track the overall stock market. In other words, it'll be pegged to an index that we'll pick. Right, Michael? We'll pick it. We'll pick a good one. These accounts will be private property controlled by the child's guardians, and in many cases, those guardians will be the parents. We think probably the parents will be the guardians. They'll be open for additional private contributions each year from family, friends, parents, employers, churches, private foundations, and more. This is a pro-family initiative that will help millions of Americans harness the strength of our economy to lift up the next generation, and they'll really be getting a big jump on life, especially if we get a little bit lucky with some of the numbers and the economies into the future.
$1,000, and you're automatically enrolled when you're born. You don't have to apply for it. You can start withdrawing. You can take up to 50% at age 18. You have access to the full balance at age 25 for qualified purposes. If you want a small business loan or higher education, you get full control of it for any purpose at age 30.
Wow.
And you can contribute, parents and others can contribute to $5,000 a year tax-free.
Now, is this not part of the big, beautiful bill?
It is part of the big, beautiful bill, yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Well, this is the beautiful part of the big, beautiful bill.
Right?
Yeah, that's so when does that start?
I think he said it's going to start January 1, 2025. Well, if you were born this year, January 1, 2025. When the bill passes, it's retroactive to the January 1st of this year.
Listen, I like the idea. The concept's good. It seems to me the bookkeeping nightmare here would be, or could be a nightmare.
Well, you already have like a health savings account that you can set up. Certainly,
Every child born in the U.S. will get $1,000.
Every child born in the U.S. will have an account set up for them for $1,000.
All right.
Every citizen. Now, there's that whole argument about birthright.
And it's invested in the stock market.
It is pegged to the stock market, yeah. So I don't know if that's the same thing as invested in, but as the stock market goes up.
So Peg is in charge of it.
Peg is in charge of it, yes. I understand she's pretty good.
Is she a stockbroker?
She's good with money. I'll say
Peg
that.
is short for Peg.
Huh?
Peg is short for Peggy.
Are we missing each other?
No,
I was trying to help.
what I'm hearing, the drawback, what people are saying why this might not be a good idea is because with any federal program, you can never, I don't know, he sunsets it in 2029. I think that's just because of the function of the bill. But it will almost certainly be re-upped and increased. And so people are worried with a country that's already way over its head in debt that we're going to start giving
I think the Democrats will want to include illegal aliens.
Well,
this equation.
They might,
so
but
it's not
the way the bill's written.
Okay.
Just saying.
That wouldn't be surprising to me if they didn't come out in favor of that. All right, you're listening to today's issues on AFR. Hey, did you get that AT&T story there? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. What
no,
one?
I don't.
AT&T, for those who subscribe to AT&T.
Oh, the Social Security numbers?
Well, they had a major data break.
Yeah. I did see that.
Every day's a new data breach for the world and our country. Anyway, I didn't know if you had.
I read it this morning. I didn't bring it in, but yeah. According to the internet, which is never wrong, they've recently experienced major data breaches compromising the personal information of millions of customers. There's a website you can go to if you're an AT&T customer. You go to this website. You can put your name and city and date of birth, and it will tell you it'll tell you if you have the potential to be compromised, and then it'll try to sell you a solution. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, this says that this according to Yahoo Tech. Ray, did you hear about this?
Yeah, and I checked up on it. And I found some of my stuff is in there in that breach, but it's exactly what you said, Steve. That it's on a website where it says, "Yeah, some of your stuff's in there, and pay us some money, and we'll fix this for you."
Yeah. Well, surprise. Guess what?
What now? So you have a data breach. Is especially a company the size of AT&T is usually they are victimized by a cyber criminal, big outfit, right?
Here's the details. The stolen data was posted to a Russian cybercrime forum on June 3rd. The file contains the full names, birth dates, phone numbers, email addresses, home addresses, and 44 million Social Security numbers in plain text. So you can go to this website, and I don't remember it. I don't even know if we want to send people there. It's a sales thing, but you put your name in.
That's the one that I went to.
Yeah, me too.
Well, people can research it for themselves. You just type in AT&T data breach. Here's the thing that I was talking to one of our other staff here, Ray, I and Stephen, I don't understand how a company as large, for example, as AT&T, and they're not the only ones. I mean, this happens on a regular basis. Don't have enough money to secure their own data without it being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is going to be a problem. And so it used to be that when 44 million Social Security numbers get out, Ray, you say, well, what's the chances they're going to pick my little, $4,000 savings account? Who cares?
Right.
The kind of anonymity in numbers. AI is changing that whole thing. AI can pick everybody's pocket at once. And
Thank
the other
you,
thing
Steve,
about
for that encouraging word.
Well, it gets better because not only will AI, when they get into quantum computing, I was reading this the other day. Did I say this on the air? I think we might have talked about it.
I don't think so.
They've got a new quantum computer that can solve a problem in 10 minutes that would take Big Blue's supercomputer 7 trillion years to solve.
Yeah, this is like Marvel stuff.
It is. And so with that much computing power, they say that there's going to be no more security. There's no lock you can put on your savings account or your AT&T can put on their passwords. There's no encryption that can't break in seconds.
So then we can
start growing my own vegetables.
I think that's what you better do.
So that
bury my phone.
They might not have an address to your mattress.
Start walking everywhere. Do away with
isn't it?
I don't even want to get in a smart car anymore. Go ahead.
Anything that's online is vulnerable at some point. Anything.
Well,
any data that's online is
especially when they have your if the bad guys get your Social Security number. I mean, this according to this report, 86 million AT&T customer records have been leaked, including full names, date of birth, phone numbers, email addresses, physical addresses, and Social Security numbers. What more do you need to take out a loan?
Yeah, right.
I mean, right. I guess you do. What you do need to do, and everyone listening here, is these credit services. What do you call them? You know what I'm talking about?
It's not credit service. Are you talking about VPNs?
No, it's
the credit services that that there's 3 major ones that people subscribe to. If you go to get a loan for a car or a house,
Equifax, TransUnion.
Yes, those
credit scores.
Yeah.
Right. They said you need to lock those down, whatever that means. Shut them off or freeze them. So that again, we're probably overreacting here, but still,
I doubt it.
I doubt it. I don't think what we just suggested is an overreaction. I'm just saying that, every week is a new big corporation data leak. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Hey, this will be interesting to y'all. Some archaeologists have been rooting around in Egypt, and they have found the Egyptian technology was a lot more exquisite than we thought. In fact, you might not know this, but Egyptians were the first ones to invent social media.
Are you calling them Egyptians, Steve?
Egyptians.
Okay.
And in
Welcome
fact, so
to the South,
they have uncovered new data. I want you to hear this. They have found Moses and Aaron, when they were going to see Pharaoh, decided to live stream the event.
Really?
And
No
we found
way.
We have found the video. Cut 15.
Guys, me and Aaron just got inside the palace. We're about to ask Pharaoh to let our people go. No idea how this is going to go, but wish us luck. Okay, we just left the meeting. We asked, he laughed, said no one's going anywhere. Anyway, the fight goes on.
Pharaoh, if you're watching this, this is your last chance. Let the people go, or it's gonna rain, hail, frogs, whatever.
Hashtag let my people go.
He let us go, then changed his mind. Now he's sending soldiers. We're literally running to the sea right now. We just got here, sea in front, army behind, no way out, everyone's freaking out. Let's see what God tells us to do. Guys, the sea literally opened up. I'll explain later, we're walking through now. And no, this path isn't on Google Maps. All right, guys, we made it. Seal's behind us, Pharaoh's not. Don't forget to like, comment, and maybe bring sandals next time.
Yeah, so
who did this?
That's
archaeologists.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right, that's funny.
That sounds like Babylon Bee stuff.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
No, it's AI stuff. Actually, there's a video that goes with it. It's really good.
Where'd you see this?
My Twitter feed has all kinds of weird stuff going on.
He said,
Oh my word!
Twitter feed, you got all kind of. Yeah,
Okay.
That's the answer I was looking for too.
All right. Well, there's the music. Probably a good thing. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Appreciate Steve.
My pleasure.
Wesley, Ray, Chris Woodward, Brent Creeley, our producer, and Sandy Rios joined us too. Have a great day, everybody. See you back here tomorrow.